We are live. It is Christmas Day and soon to be Hanukkah 2024, December 25th, and it is frigid outside. Not as frigid as it is in the Midwest and the East Coast, but it is cold outside. So, in any event, you didn't come here to get a weather report. So, I told you that I was going to do a holiday broadcast and a few stories, a few other things. We have some breaking news that I'm going to give to you first. Okay. So, Dion Lim basically still does, out at KGO, Circle 7, ABC 7. And just due to a lack of any kind of essentials from other outlets, she is staying, at least temporarily, through April of next year, April 25, April 7th to be exact. Not a lot of time, but she's staying at KGO. Now, I don't know if it's due to the fact that she didn't get any offers. I told you exclusively that she auditioned for the CBS News 24/7. That's the streaming news site up the street at Channel 5 on Broadway and Battery. And she did a very good job, but they didn't make her any kind of offer. So I know that her agent has been maneuvering to try to get her a better position, not necessarily at KGO, but other places. And she simply hasn't had a formal offer. So she's staying on at Circle 7, but it's only going to be through early April. And I think Channel 7 and Disney is quite happy with that because if she hasn't had many formal offers, then, she's going to stay on at Channel 7. So we have that to report. Okay, a little clarification. I said last week Pat Thurston and Liz St. John were gono in the headline. Apparently, Liz St. John got a life support because people at Odyssey, which owns KCBS, other stations, needed her more apparently than she needs them and told her to stay on for the time being. So she's technically still at KCBS. They need bodies. As you haven't heard lately, every different newscast and time slot, there is a different anchor. So they told her, look, we want to keep you aboard for the time being. So Liz St. John ain't going anywhere for now. She's staying on. Pat Thurston, on the other hand, I've been told, has been eliminated from the schedule. Okay. So, and a lot of you that are watching me are not just people who watch, but there are also people who watch that are, I was going to say civilians, interesting word. But a lot of you who are working it's the middle of the week, it's Christmas. I know a lot of you folks are watching me from Channel 2, from KPIX, speaking of picks. And look, while it's not very, very arduous labor, you still got to go in. Some of you have families. And so I'm here giving you a broadcast as I said I would. So welcome aboard. And, times are very tough at all the various outlets. Channel 2, I've described in detail. And that hasn't even had anything to do with proposed Fox cuts coming. NBC, Cron has got cuts coming courtesy of Nexstar. CBS, for the most part, has been successful. They've had a good run with their 24/7. Locally, KPIX has found a really good cohesive identity and is leading in various news slots, most importantly at 6 o'clock, battling out with KGO. And speaking of KGO, just so much turmoil, inner turmoil. And I've talked about this in the past, but when you have such a disharmonious feeling inside the newsroom. And you have people that are on a part-time job placement that should be full-time because Disney simply doesn't like paying people full-time because they're cheap, because they don't believe in a cohesive news operation and other departments. You thus have stations like Channel 7. So we have that taking place. And of course, I just updated you on the Dion Lim situation. So, in any event, it's not a very, very happy time. Seems like this always kind of coordinates itself around the holidays. So, we have one more holiday left, and that's New Year's and the beginning of the new year in, but what, about 9 days? Not even that. So, a lot to watch looking forward. Okay, a few stories. Um, and this is kind of interesting. And I think I wrote, I don't think I know I wrote about this when I was writing, but I never broadcast this. So I'm going to tell this story, condense it a little bit, but it's true. So we all remember Tom Snider, right? From the Today, not the Today Show, the Tomorrow Show. And Tom Snider was had that kind of voice. Hey, what are you doing? Who'd you say to whom? Um, Character became lampooned and satirized on Saturday Night Live. And of course, he died about 10 years ago. But Tom Snider, believe it or not, wanted to be in radio. And he had a Bay Area prominence. Of course, he lived in Los Angeles and did his show from LA, earlier on in New York. But he really wanted to be on talk radio. And believe it or not, he lived in Marin County. I believe Belvedere or Tiburon, one of those places. Had a nice little house. And so Snider wanted to work at KGO Radio. True story. And he and Mickey Luckoff didn't exactly hit it off. Very, very difficult guy to have any kind of a relationship with is one Mickey Luckoff, who's still alive, is in his mid to late 80s. Luckoff used to run, of course, KGO Radio when it was at its high point. And Luckoff didn't get along with mostly everybody, mostly Rod Owens, who beat him in some kind of an employment situation right after Ron started working down in Southern California. Remember, he used to work in LA, then he'd come back up to California. He worked at Northern California to go to work at KGO. And Luckoff wasn't really happy about that. He and Owens, they respected one another, but they didn't get along until the very, very end. And, things became a little bit more, put in proper perspective. So put that in your mind. Now let's circle back to Tom Snider, who had a house, as I just mentioned, up in Marin County. And Snider didn't take the shit that Mickey Luckoff put out. They were almost, underline almost, in a situation one evening. They were going to both come to, head. Never happened. But Snider really, really wanted to have a gig at KGO Radio, and Luckoff, there was some conflict. There was an identity situation. There was personality conflict, this, that, and the other. Never materialized. And Luckoff, as is his case throughout, there's not belittling him or doubting his authenticity as a programmer, as a high top executive at ABC. He was responsible, and Jack Swanson, another programming exec, for making KGO what it was. But Luckoff was a mean asshole, a very arrogant, mean, sort of curmudgeon-y jerk, personality-wise. Nobody doubted his ability. Nobody doubted his want to be effective, which he was and respected. but he simply couldn't get along with people. He had arrogance. He had some, I mean, here's how bad it was. Lukoff was always gave this great party right after Thanksgiving. He'd give a holiday party. And he had various people from KGO, old ABC people and KGO people. This past year, he still had his holiday party, and not many people showed up. A lot of people are dead. A lot of people who could have showed up didn't show up, who are still alive, obviously, because they didn't want to encounter Mickey Lukoff, because he's simply very difficult to get along and just socially awkward. Tom Snider would have loved to work at KGO. He was a damn good interviewer. He was that kind of charismatic, passionate kind of a guy. Would have made a great host. He didn't ask for it. He just wanted to work at the station, fill in to start, and see what happens. Lukoff just wouldn't have anything of it. They almost came to blows. I'll tell you what, I'd put my money on Snider if it got really far, but it didn't. Any event, that's a true story. If you want to read more, Google my name and Tom Snider and Mickey Lukoff KGO. Just put that in your search at Google, and you could read the entire story. But it was true. Some other stories to talk about. Dean Adell, Dr. Dean Adell, to a lot of you. Sort of, it was an accident that he became such a popular figure. Speaking of KGO Radio and KGO TV, arguably one of the most popular figures since Van Amber, maybe even superseded Van Amber in terms of importance, in terms of pecking order. Dr. Adell was supposed to be a guest back in 1978, around Christmas time. And he was going to guest on Russ Coughlin. Russ Coughlin was a big-time ABC television exec, did a radio show, was on the air a few years after 1978, the night John Lennon was murdered. Did a really, really incredible show. But Dr. Adell was a guest and did so well with listeners, with execs who heard him. They asked him to do a show as an experiment, which he did and which he aced. Became so good. Dr. Dean Adell, he got a gig at KGO TV, your doctor. And then did regular segments, became, as I indicated, very popular. People wrote to him. They gave him a staff of producers and background people that he developed a following. He got paid handsomely. Then he started doing national shows, basically his KGO radio show plus a national show. Then he got big and bigger at Channel 7 and, of course, ABC at the time. And it was all by accident. All by accident. He filled in. He was doing a show on the radio like an hour and got along with listeners, got a great chemistry, and became one of the most talented, one of the most popular personalities at KGO Radio and KGO TV and ABC. Doctors didn't like Dr. Dean Adell. Why didn't they like him? Because he was in this mode of preventative medicine. He told you ways in which you didn't have to go to a doctor all the time. Doctors didn't like him for the obvious reasons. He preached preventative medicine. Don't have to go see a doctor. That made a hit within listeners. Older people loved Dr. Dean Adell because he had these segments on KGO. You literally called up, Dr. Adell, I've got, and I'm just making up what I'm about to talk about. I've got a pain in my shoulder and it's gone to my chest, and should I be worried? And what do you think it is? He would go on and prescribe. Say, oh, Ethel or Darian or Bob, here's what you got. Stay away from the doctor. And of course, they had every now and then, of course, during the broadcast, they would tell people, that, it was the legal statement. You know, this is a show. Obviously, go see your doctor if you're having pain, or if you have some symptoms. Anyway, so he did that show, folks. And those of you that listened, participated, et cetera, you know that Dr. Dean Adell, from that momentary accident of just filling in, he became one of the most popular individuals, not just on the radio, KGO TV, and eventually ABC. Huge. And still living today, living up on the North Coast in, I believe, Walla, California. He was a hippie doctor, Dr. Dean Adell. His real name is Dean Adelstein. And if you're watching out there, Dean, thanks for all the good vibes that you've always given me. And I hope you're happy and healthy on this Hanukkah, Christmas 2024. So that's a good story I can give you. Finally, this is a story that very tragic, but I think a lot of you don't know this. Pete Wilson died on July 20th, 2007. He was going in to have a hip replacement. And he, as all of us who have had surgery, I have not. But if you have surgery, you literally have to sign off on it. It is acknowledging that, you're risking what have you. Anyway, Pete Wilson was very, very, shall we say, cautionary, very, very aware of, like we all do every now and then, his limits, he was really worried, even though hip replacement is a very common procedure. Pete Wilson was frantic. He was frantic. He told people about this. Most of them colleagues at Cron, where he worked until the tragic activities that took place on July 20th, 2007. There was a complication. This wasn't spelled out in the news. Certainly wasn't the autopsy. But Pete Wilson, when he went in to have the procedure, the hip replacement, there was a major, major, major complication, and things went awry, and he died. They didn't talk much about it, but I know from very, very horse's mouth kind of people, the people that were there, that he was extremely worried. It wasn't him being paranoid or hyper, what do you call that word? I think it's a certain word. It'll come to me. Somebody will point it out. And he had to have the hip replacement because he had enormous pain and it was uncomfortable. And this is a very, very common procedure. But obviously, that was not the case when Pete had his procedure done. It was a massive complication. He died. And it caught everybody by surprise, obviously. And it was really tragic because Pete was special, great journalist, great to work with. If he could be a little demanding, but that was Pete Wilson. Whether it was at television, he did a radio show, of course, in the afternoon on KGO, but it was a lot of wonderful shows. And thus his finality, his mortality, which bore through on July 20th, 2007, was an enormous tragedy and just caught everybody just completely. And I obviously didn't work with Pete Wilson, but called into his show. I was writing the blog. It was in its kind of early stages. And Pete was a really gracious gentleman, very nice. One of the great Bay Area TV news anchors, along with obviously Van Amber and Dave McElhatton, Gary Park, Marsha Branwin, and George Redding, Dennis Richmond, et cetera, Kate Kelly. Tom Sinkovitz. You could put Pete Wilson, into Evan White. I know I left some people off. Pete Wilson, much, much, much too young. Okay, so I gave you my Christmas broadcast. I want to say a few things too, three or four things. Those of you that enjoyed the Julia Child bit that I put out on Tuesday, thank you. Just spur of the moment. Um, it's part of my little deal. What the hell? If you liked it, great. If you didn't, whatever. I can't imagine you did. It was only 7 minutes long. So thanks for the feedback. As I always say, if you can, if you enjoy watching me or don't necessarily enjoy, but you're here and you like the fact that every now and then I give out scoops and every now and then I throw a few things out there and are watching and are able to donate to this cause, contribute, thank you. And if you can make a contribution, that enables me to give you a show. Just driving around today early before I came into the palatial studio here to do my show, there was a couple of radio stations, very prominent radio stations locally, asking for donations. Like the big band station, like the jazz station. There are literally billionaires out there who ask for contributions. Bill O'Reilly asks for contributions. Mark, uh, God, I'm at a loss now. It's too cold. Mark Levin, yeah, Michael Savage. So, look, folks, I am a one-man operation. I don't have a staff. My staff is me. And I am just trying to survive, have a little cheer in my own life, which is not full of cheers these days, and be able to just sit back every now and then and not necessarily enjoy, but to just take a breather and do these things. And I enjoy doing. I'm not going to make any bones about it. Larry King used to say, they pay me for this. So if you could send me a donation and just click the PayPal, it's 100% safe, secure. Whatever you could send, $5, $10, 20, 25, 16.5 million. Okay. Anything, $25, 50. I will not only thank you, I will thank you in person. Well, maybe not in person, but I'll call you or I'll email you. If you don't want to be bothered, let me know. I'll just send you a note. Whatever you want is okay with me. I appreciate you doing this, especially during the holidays. Hanukkah, I'm not going to have a Hanukkah. I didn't have a Thanksgiving. And I don't have any family, pretty much. The only family I do have is distant and few people, stragglers in New York, but I'm just basically alone. And that's fine. No sympathy. Just every now and then, I too, like you, like to go out and enjoy a cup of coffee or whatever. Okay. I say that not literally, figuratively speaking. So if you can, please make a donation. And you yourself and your family, as I always say, be happy and be thankful that you're with family and friends. And I hope you had or have a great, great Christmas or Hanukkah starting this evening. Kwanzaa, those of you that celebrate Kwanzaa, and all of you. And even if you don't celebrate it, I hope you have a great time and the rest of this year, which God went by way, way, way fast. It always does. So thank you and enjoy. I'll see you later.